Sorry. First time seeing the watchtower in this one. Woo! Looks kind of weird. In fact, it looks like they took an asteroid and just kind of a building out of it. And then added super tech, because you gotta have super tech, right? What would life be without super tech? So I'll just eat this invisible sandwich here. Okay, dumb jokes aside. I actually found the League politics side of this episode pretty fascinating. The idea of the people arguing and disagreeing and debating. This is going to sound weird, but I actually enjoy a good debate. In fact, once upon a time I started a political game that was supposed to be just people discussing politics. It went wildly off the rails for various reasons, the most important one being just a lack of interest from players, But I found the whole concept just very engaging. Because there's something very interesting to me about sitting down and trying to discuss something with someone and reach some kind of verdict or conclusion. Yeah, I know, that sounds really geeky and dry and boring, but it's true. And so seeing this kind of internecine politics in the League is a nice little treat for me. So, a couple notes about the League politics thing. Red Arrow is mentioned, and of course, he's related to Guardian. Go figure. There's... Okay. I don't laugh out loud all that often because I'm usually trying to keep myself restrained. I fail now and again, as my stream viewers can tell you. But there's this bit where Flash, Barry, I believe, suggests Guy Gardner. And both Hal and John turn and say, no. Well, but we could, no. That was great. Oh, that was so great. Anyways. Also, Fate is on the team, basically taking Zatara's spot, which is also engaging in its own way. Why? Well, first of all, he doesn't get that slot automatically, but Zatara does want him to have it. After all, the League is the only one he can trust. The League are the only ones he can trust in order to keep an eye on Fate. I mean, think about it. As I said, Fate's not a good guy. He's an order guy. Then they start arguing over Captain Marvel. Now, this is interesting. First of all, Bats, there's this bit where Canary says maybe you could, leave and we'll deal with this elsewise. Now, Canary's actually been pretty good with kids the whole thing. So it makes sense that she would be the one to reach out to him from the maternal perspective. It is Bats who puts his foot down and says, no, he is currently a League member, and therefore he has the right to be a part of this until anything changes. He's staying. It's actually funny, several times Bats just kind of lays down the law with regards to how they're dealing with things, which makes sense. He's Batman. There's also this bit where they mention that the real problem here is his lie. Not the fact that he's young, although they are concerned about that, and they do deliberate on the age problem. The age argument itself is interesting and valid. I mean, at what point do you consider people to be accepted in this thing? There are simple, basic biological and mental things. I spent almost an entire episode of these Mini-Ruminations talking about the very nature of what it means to mature, and how Wally is very slowly going through that, right? And how he is currently immature. Like, Wally probably should not be in the League, if for no other reason than he's not demonstrated that maturity, right? But then they start describing chronological age, biological age. This is why I say it should probably be case by case, at least in the fantastical situation they're dealing with. After all, they literally show two examples of the uniqueness there. Superboy, who is less than a year old mentally, and Megan, who's like 48 or something. But all of this comes back to a wonderful bit. It's actually probably my favorite scene in the whole thing, other than the no scene. They talk about Robin. And Wonder Woman rather scathingly says, you've been trained, you took this kid and you forced your way of life on them, and just so he could become another you. And it is Bats who has to, once again, shut her down by saying no, so he wouldn't become like me. That's Batman. That's Bruce right there. It is a great scene. So, Connor hears the frequency. And funny, Luther's probably just been waiting for a time when Soup's elder, would actually leave the planet so he can do this. As long as the sound is contained in the atmosphere, he's not going to hear it, right? So he sends out the signal. It's like, hey, you're the only one who can hear this. Fascinating way of getting his attention, by the way. Also, funny little bit. Uh, Connor lies to Megan when he says why he's leaving. So that's both of them keeping secrets from each other. That's cute. They also, so we talk about the Genomorphs and how they're not really free. You know, this is Genomorph City. I dream of a day when, my people can be accepted on the surface. I get where he's coming from, but as I've said before, this is DC. This is relatively well into DC. Like, the superheroes and aliens have been a thing for a while. Even during the Halloween episode, one person mentioned, dude, Martians are cool. Even if they're invading, they're nice people, right? The very idea that Martians not only exist, but are relatively understandable things from an everyday perspective means I think we're probably at the point where we could try to start implementing Genomorphs being accepted on the surface. Yeah, there'll be some, what do we call, growing pains, which will be very unpleasant, as they always are. But I'm pretty sure we're already at the point where we could start ripping that Band-Aid off. Anyways, so, why are they still working there, by the way? We will save millions of lives. Doing what? Like, is this just genetics research? Is this health concerns? They're very vague, and they don't ever actually talk about it. So anyways, then it cuts to the match fight. And I wrote this note in my things, they're fighting match. Match can fly and has heat vision. And I made the note, is no one watching this? This is actually addressed. Obviously, Luther is watching this. But what's funnier is that they apparently did catch the security cam footage. One of the things I like about this is Connor is very iffy about this whole thing, and understandably so. He was built by these people, and he really doesn't like the ideas of what it reminds him in. Notice how when he's put into a pod, he escapes, he freaks out, completely flips, and smashes out in seconds. He was put in the pod so they could heal him. Right? I mean, you think about it. Again, I'm not trying to be judgmental. It's just very understandable why someone like he, who has very low maturity, is reacting this way. And that's not an insult. He's less than a year old. Maturity, by its very nature, requires time and experience, and he has neither. So, they fight Match. Match heat visions an S into his chest, which is just messed up. And I made a note here. Why is this frickin' place so Dave organic looking? It's really weird. So we see Genomorph City, and Genomorph City is revealed, and we see that what Luther was really up to pretty much this whole time. Luther wanted to get the shields to Connor, which enable him to go full power temporarily 1 hour. He wanted to get him the shields. He wanted to figure out what was going on with the missing Genomorphs, and he wanted the compromise. So Luthor... Connor constantly argues from Match's rights, because he's arguing from his own limited experience. Match then tries to kill him, like in mid-sentence, which helps make the point. While Connor has a sort of generic kind of idea that he's going for, he doesn't have a specific idea to implement. He's just generically in favor of the concept of rights for Genomorphs. And obviously for the other clone, just like he was. He's thinking of Match as if Match is him, but Match is not him, and that's the problem. This also leads, of course, to a scene where he uses this patch, and you notice he goes a little bit more feral, although I do like how it takes him a bit to get used to the powers. But anyways, it takes Guardian to actually talk. Guardian, the one he was so suspicious of him and so angry towards. Guardian's the one who talks him down from beating Match, possibly to death. Depends on how Kryptonians can die in this setting. I don't know. And then Luther talks to him, and this is probably my second favorite scene in the episode. In some ways, it's a typical villain speech. We're not so different, you and I. But no, it's more like... He cuts straight to the heart of everything that Connor is doubting and questioning about himself. He succeeds in his discussion because he has valid points. Now, he is wrong about Soups. We have a pretty good idea why Soups is rejecting him. It's not because he's from the bad guys. It's because Soups is having trouble coping and comprehending this thing. I've already mentioned that. That's been true in several episodes. And I'm hoping they'll do something more with that in the future. But he still makes several valid points. Superman has given him nothing. Luthor is trying to reach out to him and give him, give him a gift, give him some understanding, and try to explain how there are grays in a world as complex as the one they live in, which is all true. The catch is, and this is actually ironic, but he had to. Luther had no choice. Connor says, I'm just going to go ahead and punch you anyways. See, that's the thing. All it takes, I've said this so many times, all it takes to bypass political power is personal power, and or a lack of caring about consequence. Connor, in this circumstance, has both. He doesn't give a crap, and he can literally punch Luther's head from a convex to a concave, or concave to convex. I can't remember which is which. So, of course, Luther had to show his hand. He had to, because he had no other choice. And now we find out that he has command codes over Superboy, which means we're up to 2 heroes who are compromised. Yay. This, by the way, solidifies for me the idea that neither Megan nor Connor are actually compromised, that they're not the moles. So I stand by my theory I mentioned earlier, especially since you'll notice he was mentioned for League membership a bit ago. Yeah, I don't think I missed that part. We'll see where this goes next time.